I love this burger. It's so delicious. It's one of the best burgers I've ever had.
Okay, people, let's try this one more time. Hey, everybody, it's Kevin from Twin Talk, and today we're going to be talking all about Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Stick around to the end of the episode to see how our drawing of The Spot came out, and if you like what you see, subscribe to the channel for more content. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is the highly anticipated sequel to the 2018 film Into the Spider-Verse, with much of the vocal cast returning with some new additions. We got Oscar Isaac as Spider-Man 2099, Miguel O'Hara, which we saw in the end credits scene sneak peeked in the first movie, and Daniel Kaluuya as Spider-Punk, who is a lot of fan favorites, including myself, and Karan Soni as Paviter Parbakar, or whatever, the Indian Spider-Man, who honestly, for me, with that much dynamic energy, the guy stole the show, especially with that flow. I mean, come on, respect. This will be a spoiler-filled review, so if you haven't seen the movie, 1, what's wrong with you? 2, check it out and come back and watch this video. With that out of the way, I had very high hopes, great expectations, if you will, for this movie. The first movie blew me away. We did an entire spoiler-filmed retro review of that. When the first movie came out, I was very unenthusiastic about it. I thought we were just getting set up with an MCU Spider-Man with Tom Holland, and then Sony was just throwing everything at the fan, hoping something would stick. But honestly, I gotta say, this franchise is quickly becoming one of the most engaging and entertaining superhero franchises, to be honest. The story, while for me not as solid as the first film, the visuals are still so spectacular. This cannot be understated. The artists took what they were doing in the first film and dialed this thing up to 11, man, because this movie is gorgeous. Especially the moments when Gwen and her father are having like these emotional beats, and you could see the mood kind of changing with the visuals, where the background, it almost looks like raindrops or watercolor kind of just dripping down. The warm and colder colors that change throughout the scene. It's just so well executed. The different animation styles of the characters, like Spider-Punk, how he almost looked like newspaper clippings and just like that almost like comic dot, very monochromatic, just very edgy look to him. And even the Spot, I love how he had like blue, sketchy looking outlines on him. Just, again, visually, this movie is just so well done. The soundtrack doesn't miss once again. This movie universe hits all the boxes for me. I'm a sucker for a great, inspiring story, incredible visuals, incredible soundtrack to boot with it, and great movie promotion. The Burger King burger, the spiderverse Whopper. Bought it, had to do it. Gonna be eating it by the end of this video. Although apparently with the red dye or whatever, I'm not gonna live to see another day. But hey, hopefully it's a good burger. But I'm a sucker for all that stuff, man. It's everything that a summer blockbuster should be, and I got good vibes from this movie going into it. Once it started, I got like chills, and just between the soundtrack, how it opened up with like this like whiplash opening with Gwen Stacy and her band, the Mary Janes. I was like, all right, I'm in here. Although my one gripe, if there's anything I can complain about with this film, is that it is a little bit long, and the first act kind of drags on a little bit for me. It kind of repeats itself in a lot of ways with the family dynamics, which is a great aspect, don't get me wrong, but I just feel like they kind of hit it over the head. All right, Miles wants to kind of get this little separation from his family, be his own thing, be his own hero. He misses his friends, very like coming of age teenager type stuff. And you could even see Miles visually looking a little bit older in this movie. I thought that was a pretty nice touch. But that story aspect of his family kind of plays pretty heavily into what I think they're trying to go with him. I think that, as we know from the cliffhanger of this film, that there's going to be a third part beyond the Spider-Verse, and that's going to, I feel like, be a tragic, defining moment for Miles. I don't know too much about his history in the comics, but we know this whole thing with the captains dying. I think we're going to see him kind of have a bummed out ending, but hopefully he rises above it or whatever. I don't know, but I'm excited either way. I just felt like that the family aspect was too much in the beginning. But that's about all the bad I have to say about it. It was very fast paced. Even though it's a longer film, it doesn't feel bloated or overwhelming. It's just, there's a lot of layers and there's a lot to unravel and unpack in this film. That I'm glad they're having this third film kind of be like the second part of the movie, because it did need a little bit of room to breathe, because there was a lot set up and a lot of interesting story choices happening, which leads me into The Spot and Miguel O'Hara. I was not sure who was going to be the central villain of this film, and that's where it kind of weaves in and out for me too. It's like there's a lot of complex things happening here. The Spot, I loved this guy. First of all, I thought the voice actor was Ryan Reynolds. Sounds exactly like him, but it's Jason Schwartzman. He did a good job, and I'm a sucker for indie, like they said, villain of the week, obscure, really out there designs and concepts. And the Spot is someone who, almost like in the Suicide Squad with Polka Dot Man, could be viewed as a joke. But when you really think about it, this guy is definitely a threat. He looks absurd with his like Dalmatian and cow looking thing. They even mentioned that in the movie. In the comics, he's kind of goofy looking, but in the 90s Spider-Man cartoons, he was a pretty cool character, and you could see how he can kind of have this edge with this like interdimensional portal, almost like teleportation. And you know, if he punches you here, it could come out 3 rooms over there, and he could, you know, take half your body and just bring you through the floor and drop you from a building. When you really think about it, that's insanely powerful. And I love how they kind of leveled this guy up as this joke. And even when they said, "Oh, you're not a joke," and he like snips his fingers and cuts all them away, and he's like, you're about to find out, or something like that. I was like, okay, this guy, yeah, he's got something to prove. And we're definitely seeing that. I thought, because when we first saw him, he was white and black, kind of goofy looking, if you will. And then by the end of the film, he's like inverted. He's like black with white spots. I don't know if that's a symbiote, because I know he was transporting throughout the dimensions and stuff. So I don't know what he picked up along the way, what he saw, what he did. But I liked the connection that the Spot was Bagel Guy. I like that they had that kind of canon, which is an important element of this film too, this whole canon thing. I was hoping that the Spot's backstory would be fleshed out a little bit more. It was kind of briefly like drawn out and all right, here we go. You threw the bagel at me. You know, the spider came from another universe. I created you, so you created me type Batman Joker 89 type feud. So I like that he's becoming his arch nemesis. That's a really cool aspect. Perfect villain for the sequel. And I like that they're not going with too many mainstream villains. Like, even there was like an alternate version of the Vulture, which was a sick scene, very visually dynamic, with him this like Italian Renaissance painting version. Although he had kind of like pumpkin bombs like the Green Goblin. That's what I thought. But he was a really cool looking character. At first I thought that the Spot's motivations were a little unclear or cheeseball or kind of like surface level, but when you really think about it too, like, he only has one thing left to live for, right? It's not a suit, it's his skin, apparently. He's kind of outcasted by his family, his friends, his job and all this, so he's got really nothing left to live for. He's like a science experiment gone wrong, and he's just got one sole purpose now, is to kind of give it back to Miles, because he blames him for all the problems that he has in his life, which is a little sad when you think about it. So you kind of feel for this villain. But the Spot transporting throughout those different dimensions, that was 90% of the fun for me in this film. I did not think that they were going to go live action with a lot of these Easter eggs. The Easter eggs were glorious. I thought they were just going to have fun with the designs. They one-upped me. I mean, I audibly gasped when we saw Mrs. Chen in the Venom Sonyverse. And then Andrew Garfield, I was like, no. Like, my audience was pretty good, and they had some out loud moments where they're like, what? No, oh snap. The cliffhanger, everyone was like, no, like they were punched in the gut. Very suspenseful stuff when we saw Evil Miles, which we'll get into, but yeah, just a lot of fun, cool things happening with this film. And speaking of villains, I was kind of surprised that Miguel O'Hara was kind of like the anti-hero, the guy who has to make the hard choices. They kind of told us that he's not necessarily bad, but he's doing bad things for the sake of the greater good, right? Which is an interesting concept to discuss, because if they save one person, then everyone's world is kind of thrown off balance, so they got to keep the canon, which is a paradoxical, interesting type thing when it comes to like multiverses and time travel and whatnot. Oscar Isaac killed it with his mood, his tone, his kind of like broody vampire, almost like Batman vibe, and he's kind of like the reluctant hero, or the necessary bad guy, if you will. I'm very intrigued to see how that story plays out on that cliffhanger ending, because Miles is basically on the run from the Spider Society and what it means to be a hero. He's kind of trying to redefine that role and avoid these consequences. Which reminds me, Evil Miles, that was a shock. I did not see that coming. That was like a very tense, suspenseful moment of the film in the last act. I was kind of like scratching my head. I was like, wait, what's going on? When Gwen comes back, because Spider-Punk left the bracelet, and we see Miles talking to his parents, and they have no idea who Spider-Man even is, and he's on this like chaotic, disheveled world because there's no hero, and it's just a Prowler, and his Uncle Aaron is kind of like, you know, helping the mom out since the dad is dead in that on that universe. So that's going to be an interesting dynamic to see too. This Evil Miles, what are the stakes with that? I'm just so unsure but intrigued. I need the next movie, man. And I like that aspect, is that this feels like a serialized cartoon comic book. They lean heavily into that of the to be continued, and I applaud them for doing that. It felt very much like the ending of Infinity War was like, no, that can't be it. We gotta wait to see the ending. I like when they take bold decisions like that and make the audience want it and come back for more. But I'm really interested to see how this pans out, because I truly believe, I think it's even confirmed, that Miles Morales is getting his own solo or live action movie universe. And why not? Because he's already become such a beloved, popular character with the video games, the comic books. Really the only thing left is the live action for him to make that jump from animation now to live action. I don't know if the same vocal actors will be able to pull it off look-wise. Then we're going to kind of be thrown off a bit, which is why I think it's a very bold move what Sony's trying to do here, is kind of make this jump into the MCU or its own really thing, because they've proven that they can make this a successful story. Now we're engaged. Now we want to see what happens next. And if they can kind of broaden this over the MCU or the multiverse saga with the Avengers that's happening, with the whole TVA and Loki that we saw, and there's even references to Doctor Strange and the nerd back on Earth 99 or whatever, which is clearly got to be Tom Holland, I'm assuming. And then even the way that the multiversal webs or the weaves, right, the canon, once they showed it, the branches, it looked like the timeline from Doctor Strange or Loki. I'm hella hyped to see what they're trying to pull off here. I'm glad to see Gwen kind of get her own little backstory developed. I'm kind of still on board with having, Emma Stone return and play Spider-Gwen live action. I would love to see that in some universe. If they're doing this, why not just go balls to the wall and just give us more, as long as the stories are good. Gwen has always had a soft spot in my heart in the comics and the movies with Amazing Spider-Man 2, and she says it doesn't work out every time she gets with Spider-Man, so I thought that was an interesting angle. How they had the conversation where she kind of turns upside down, that was like one of the most beautiful, frame-worthy pictures of the movie. As far as the Easter eggs go, I thought they were all glorious. The ones that really stood out to me were, again, Venom. I did not expect us to go live action with this. Andrew Garfield, Tobey Maguire, Spectacular Spider-Man, PlayStation Spider-Man, Peter Parked Car, the Spidey-mobile, let's go. A lot of fan service, a lot of nostalgic, even the original Spider-Man, the 60s Spider-Man swinging in. I wanted to see 90s Spider-Man, maybe even Ultimate Spider-Man. There's really like endless possibilities that they can do, honestly. Favorite scene, there's a lot of runners-up, but for me personally, that world that the Indian Spider-Man was on was very bright and vibrant and fun. How he was doing the yo-yo, swinging type stuff, the flow, his look, all of it was just so, it gave me energy, and I loved that. Gotta go with my favorite scene being that bodega fight with the Spot when they first see him, when he's robbing the ATM. So much leaning into the aspect of his powers and having fun with it, how the bread comes out of his stomach. He's like disguised. Meanwhile, he looks ridiculous in the first place. Like, what are you hiding, bro? And just how the fight style could really be explored with the animation and his powers and the web swinging in and weaving in and out of the city, different like teleportation type stuff, and even how the banter with Miles, how he was eating the Jamaican beef patty and had his mask up. I'm a sucker for all that stuff. How it's like kind of like normie world meets this like ridiculous dynamic flavor to it. I ate that up. Spider-Punk, my only gripe would be that I could not understand a word he was saying in the first like 10 minutes of him being on screen. It was like he was eating mud. He was like the heavy British accent. He was like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. I was like, what? I needed subtitles, couldn't understand a word. But visually, he was great. I mean, I got the toy here. Spider-Punk is such a sick-looking character. I like the cast a little bit more from the first film with Spider-Ham, which I was so excited to see them return by the end. Spider-Man Noir, Spider-Ham, Penny Parker. It was all great to see, which gets me so hyped for the third film, to see them returning. I'm going to give this movie a 9 out of 10 because it's a little bit more convoluted than the first film, story-wise. It repeats itself a little bit in the first act mostly, kind of dragged a little bit, and it could have been chopped up slightly to make it a more engaging film, but maybe that will pay off in the third film. It's kind of hard to judge since it's technically a part one. But I love this movie. I love the franchise. I love the characters. I love the art. I love the poster I got. I love the fact that we're eating Burger King merchandise based on this movie. Seeing obscure characters come to the forefront and be cool. It's just such an accomplishment. What did you guys think about Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse? Anyways, that about wraps up today's episode of Twin Talk. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Comment below to join the discussion. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more content. We'll see you next time. Peace! Whopper, BK. Have it your way. You roll. All right, let's try this thing out, man. We got our French fries, of course, to explain how multiverses work to younger Spider-Men. Shout out Peter B. Parker. And a heavy-duty flame-grilled Whopper. Ah, it's pure. That's pretty cool. If you could see it. It's pretty cool packaging, as my whole burger's probably going to slide out of this thing. You like that? You get this the money shot right there. You like that? All right, let's see. Will the red dye kill me? Slapped together. Always, never looks like how the commercials look. All right, here we go. Dripping like crazy. Pretty good. I don't know if it's a different cheese that they use, like white American. I don't know, maybe, but it's good. It's basically just a Whopper with, they say it's beet juice. There's a whole debate about the red 40 dye or whatever and the negative health effects it has. But if you're eating Burger King, period, you know, how concerned are you for your health? As I'm eating Burger King. Does it pass the crispy test? And of course, got to wash it down with a little whiskey ginger and the clanked Twin Talk merchandise. Cheers, brother. I'm a sucker for movie merchandising when they have like Batman or Spider-Man or whatever on Doritos packaging, Oreos packaging, whatever. It's always the most unhealthy foods in the world, but you know, I love this stuff. I hope to see more stuff for The Flash and other Transformers movies and everything else in the summer. Stick around. We'll be doing spoiler reviews of those films as well, and hope to see you guys in the next one. Peace, Reese's.